See, is it running?
Yeah, it's recording, so...
See, my problem was, because I could do it talking to you, right?
Yeah.
So my problem was, is you know, as you look at things, people don't ask right questions. And if you don't ask questions, you never learn. You're never going to find anything out, are you, basically? So, when it's like I was watching Question Time once, a few years ago now, and there was usual format, audience there, three MPs and then your normal pundit, idiot, useful idiot, which is what they are.
Yeah.
And a guy, audience, says, he came out with a comment that we've got no constitution. And I thought to myself, that's not true. Of course we've got a constitution. How can we have a government that's a constitutional monarchy and not have a constitution? And I knew we'd got one then, and I've been studying and looking into things for a long time at that point anyway. And what struck me was we've got 3 MPs and not one of them who are there constitutionally, they're in Parliament as representatives of the people, as elected representatives, not one of them corrected him. In fact, nobody on panel corrected him. I thought, this ain't right. Something's not right here. And as you look at things, nothing's right, is it? Nothing at all. So I've been asking questions a long time, and the best way to educate yourself is ask questions. If you don't get the answer that gels with you, if it don't sound right, then you carry on.
Yeah.
Obviously, then you do your research yourself, and you carry on, which is what I've done. And I've come up with some questions that I think we should be asking. And like, who controls the supply of money? Simple as that. Who controls the supply of money?
Perfect question.
Yeah. What is democracy? We talk about democracy, and I bet you nobody can describe it. They'll tell you it's an election.
Yeah.
It's not. Democracy is demos kratos, people power. Doesn't mention elections. I know people bring them together, but it doesn't mean elections.
Demos kratos.
Demos kratos. 2 Greek words, same as anarchy and archos. The 2 words that come together, that sit really well together.
Yeah.
People think anarchy is being unlawful, or lawless, going out,
chaos.
Chaos. It's not.
It's not like
it means you don't have people ruling over you. In other words, no rule by divine right. Nobody's sat up there saying, I'm God, I'm God's representative, you will do what I say. There's none of that. You still have the rule of law, but you don't have the rule of men. Rule of law and rule of men are 2 different things. And I thought today, what is sovereignty? And who is sovereign? And I'm looking at things and I'm thinking, you've got 4 words that we use a lot. Democracy, sovereignty, consent, and then you've got anarchy. And if you chuck all 4 of them into bed, they'll never fall out with each other. They really do sit well. And they're the basis of Britain's culture. They are the basis of it, going back thousands of years. If you read things from Tacitus, even Julius Caesar, you can see the basis of it there in ancient Britain. Right through into Anglo-Saxon times, into the Dome with Alfred the Great, the common law, where the common law was set. You can see it all. The common law existed before that through the it wasn't called common law, obviously, but it was through the customs and traditions of the people, how they perceived law to be, how they wanted to live together. They lived together in harmony, and that's what it is. It's about living together in peace and harmony, knowing your rights, knowing who you are. And because we don't understand those 4 basic words, we've allowed government to take control of us, when it should be the other way around. So I thought I'll look into them, and I've been doing it a long time. It's like with like with lawful rebellion, free man on the land, all this kind of stuff all comes together. British Constitution Group, UK colonies, they all come together. They're all coming together with the same thing, basically. And it's all over the world now. And, and a lot started up in Canada with Robert Menard. And Robert Menard said something in that Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception that really struck me. He says, when you're looking at a word, you've got to understand the assumption that goes with it. It's like consent. I think consent's an easy one to understand. So if I ask you for a tenner, and you say, here Tony, here's a tenner, you've consented.
Yeah.
So if I put a gun to your head and say, give me that tenner, And you say, yeah, there's a tenner. That's not consent anymore, is it?
No.
It's submission.
Yeah.
I've coerced you into submitting to my will,
Yeah.
basically.
So I'm under duress.
So there's no you're under duress, and there can't be duress. The assumption is that you can deny consent then. Because if you've got a choice to agree or to disagree, or to not give consent, not to go along with what someone wants, then of course you've got a choice not to. You can or you can't. So the assumption is you can say no. And that's something, that little word's something we've forgotten.
Yeah, no.
No, I don't. I'm not interested. Go and play your game. And one of the big problems is our real ignorance. Is because we're ignorant of what's going on, we're ignorant of who we are and what power we've got. And each generation is more ignorant than the last.
Yeah.
As we're dumbed down further and further through the education system, and mainly through the media, through the broadcast and written media, is the way we're really trampled on, and really pushed down, so that we no longer remember who we are.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'll bring them all together and let's have a look and see what democracy is and what it really means. Now I've got a quote here. Where have I written it? 1931, I think 32 this was. This is Arthur Toynbee. And he was talking about sovereignty, and he was in a meeting in, I think it was in Sweden. Where was it?
Was he a politician?
He was a Fabian.
Oh yeah.
He was a member of the Fabian Society at the
Yeah.
time, and he said this about sovereignty. And when you read about Jean Monnet, you look at the European Union, how it's gone. Edward Heath admitted he lied about the sovereignty issues in Parliament. So you can, when you look at that, you can see that people call conspiracy theories, conspiracy. Of course, it's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
We know it's a conspiracy. It's no theory. We've got actual historical fact to prove it. So, and you see the Fabians working today. Fabian in Tony Blair, Gordon Brown. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and this is and I quote Arthur Toynbee here. It says, and this is what he said in that quote: "We are at present working discreetly with all our might to wrest this mysterious force called sovereignty out of the clutches of the nation states of the world. All the time we are denying with our lips what we are doing with our hands, because to impugn the sovereignty of the local nation states of the world is still heresy, for which a statesman or publicist can not quite be burned at the stake, but certainly be ostracised or discredited." So even then, this is 1933, I think it was, they were talking about what they were doing, which is taking the sovereignty from the people, but for who? And it's all working together. You see, it's all working together. So we'll just talk about democracy for a bit, because people call it mob rule. But you've got to look at the word again, is demos kratos, two Greek words, people and power. If I have power over you, then you've no longer got power, have you?
No.
Yeah, you're supposed to have power. So the assumption's got to be, it's got to be an individual, really. And I'm making a big leap here, but I've looked into it. I just want to cut through. It has to be individual. It can't be elective. The election cannot be the actual concept of democracy. It can't be that. Because it's like we have a first past the post system. It should really be called winner takes all. So if you've got 51% of the vote, that means 49% are doing what the 51% want.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what you're saying. Which means that the 51% have power over the 49.
Yeah.
So if you've got 10 people standing for election, somebody can win with 11% of vote.
It's like two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
Yeah. And you've also then got 11% dictating to the 89%.
Oh yeah.
So how's that right then?
No. It's a paradox.
The electoral system is because the electoral system is not democracy. Democracy is the sovereignty of the people. And you can't have democracy if you don't have a form of common law. You can't have a democracy. There's no democracies in Europe. You cannot have democracy, people power, literally, under a civil Roman jurisdiction, because you've got either polygarchy and oligarchy, or dictatorship. It is dictatorship.
Yeah.
So people confuse democracy, the people power. They call it mob rule, but it's not. They call it, truly what we've got here is not democracy, because we don't understand it anymore. It's elective dictatorship, and that's what you have in Europe. If you look at the Russians always elected people, but nobody called them a democracy, would they?
No.
They always had elections, but they were never a democracy.
Yeah. So because we're electing people into power, it goes against democracy.
Of course it does.
Because
It's
the people who've
completely
got the
democratic.
power.
Yeah.
What we're really doing is electing them to look after us affairs, you know.
We're electing them because this is where Dean Clifford opened a lot of doors and a lot of eyes, because Dean Clifford's a Canadian. He did a lot of work on trust law. And if you look at Parliament, Parliament doesn't own anything. Our government owns nothing. The councils own nothing. When you've got council and they don't own anything, they hold it in trust for us. We're the beneficiaries of that trust.
Right.
So when we elect somebody to represent us into Parliament, what we're actually doing is electing someone to serve us, basically, as a trustee. We're electing trustees. To me, the way I see it is the head of state is the administrator, the executor of the trust. Those underneath trustees, and we are the beneficiaries of that trust. Because everything's we are the only ones that can create. The government doesn't create jobs, it doesn't create wealth, it doesn't create anything. It's there simply as an administration. It is not a government. Why would we want a government? We're not kids, we're not children. You know, it's like when you go back to Victorian times, you used to have a governess for your children, didn't you?
Yeah.
To look after them. You know, we're not. Are we our children? Are we?
No.
No. I'm quite the only person who really knows what I want or what's best for me or what's best for you is you or me.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah.
You know, no, not a Tony Blair or a David Cameron or a Nick Clegg or an Obama.
No.
So it's not quite right, is it?
No.
You know, it's what we're talking about. And one of the questions I asked myself was, how can a criminal make law for an honest man? And I'm scratching my head thinking, how can they?
It's not philosophically.
There's something not
It's
right,
not
quite right, is
ethical
there?
No,
Now,
it's not morally
how do
right.
criminals, and people should ask themselves, how can a criminal make law for me? Because at the end of the day, if you've got honest, decent, hard-working people having laws made for them by people who are robbing them, so who are acting outside of their contract, in breach of the contract, they're acting ultra vires, which is mean without authority. So if they're criminals, and most of them are criminals, then how can they make law? And the simple answer obviously is they can't, and they never have been able to. The problem is we don't know the difference between what's lawful and legal, and we don't know the maxims that really govern over it or explain it. Like the maxim, equality before the law is paramount and mandatory. If equality before the law is paramount and mandatory, and nobody will disagree with that, then how can one man make law for another? Because the equality's gone straight out the window. And it's not democracy. People say, oh, that's democracy. It ain't. That's not democracy at all. Democracy is when I still have the power. I still have that authority. I still have that choice.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is I'm not abdicating authority. All I'm doing is saying to you, you're going over there to work for me. And it says it in the Act of Settlement, where it defines the Queen's... That's 1700, 1701 Act of Settlement, defines it. It settles it. It settles the ascension to the throne, which is what they're arguing about now, so they want shut of it. It's not because they want a Catholic, it's not to do with discrimination, it's to do with a certain clause. It sets out the coronation oath, and it says that the monarch will govern in accordance with the laws and customs of the people.
Yeah, that is what it says. Yeah.
That's what it says. And it also says officers and ministers of the crown will serve in accordance of the same.
Mm.
So if they're in service, they're not in power. It lays it out for us.
Mm.
It absolutely lays it out for us, and that's our constitution. We've got a constitution, we've got a written constitution. Because it's in one book doesn't mean we don't have it. And that constitution is the contract between the people and the administration and the head of state. That is the contract.
There's many different acts in there that make up that contract.
Yeah,
right?
There's Magna Carta,
Yeah.
there's a Petition of Right, there's the
Declaration of Rights.
Declaration of Rights, which
Act of
became the Bill of
Settlement.
Rights and the Act of Settlement.
Yeah.
They say the Constitution's in flux, but you've got four basic things there that are not.
Mm.
Just because you put them into an Act of Parliament and then repeal bits of it like that with Magna Carta doesn't mean that they're no longer in force. They kid you into believing that, but it does not mean that. It can't mean that, because your basic unalienable rights, your birthright as a human being, as a person born in this country, are immutable. You cannot be taken away from you.
And they just list, don't they, the rights that we've got.
All they're doing is quantifying them for you.
Yeah.
They're not all of your rights. The rights you want are the rights you claim, as long as they don't impinge or impugn upon another person's rights.
Mm.
So it's called living together.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. It's like Parliament. Why have a law saying that you can't commit murder? Because we've already got one.
It secures the philosophy of anarchy in a way.
Yes, no rule.
Yeah.
No rule by divine. We chopped the king's head off for that.
Yeah.
Then we had a glorious revolution and we had the Declaration of Rights because of it.
Yeah.
No rule by divine right. No rule from the Vatican. Nobody saying, I'm God, I'm God's representative, you will do as I say. No. Because this is one of the reasons of getting rid of, whether people believe in God or not, irrelevant is your belief is what you want to believe. But when you take God out of the equation, what they do is they put the state there instead.
Yeah.
So now you've got the state dictating, whereas you've got natural law, or what we used to call God's law, or ecclesiastical canons that came from it. And everything's ecclesiastical, everything's based on it anyway.
Yeah.
And all of that, and even before Christianity, it was very similar.
Yeah, natural laws in place, weren't they?
Yeah.
Even in trading with different tribes.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
So you've got law, and you've got the customs and traditions of the people. People didn't want to go around killing people. It's all a load of bull. You know, the only time people are driven to it is when there's something wrong in their head, or they're hungry, or something's gone seriously wrong.
Yeah, influenced by...
Yeah, and it's usually influenced by people who are going to get some benefit out of it.
Yeah.
Nearly always. We can see that today, can't we? We see it all the time today. So we look at democracy, and we look at our sovereignty, and the sovereignty of the individual person, the individual man or woman. People like using person, obviously, for all these free men people that, I've done my claims of right and all this lot. Using person as a natural born person, as a natural human being. But if we look at consent and sovereignty, like I say, you put them all together, you've basically got what is our culture, what was our culture for thousands of years. It altered with the Romans, it altered with 1066, it altered with the Vikings coming. So it's, because the Normans especially, because the Normans basically was to bring civil law, Roman law into the country, because they've been kept out up to that point. They'd actually been kept out. But obviously things aren't the same. There's an interesting point though about the common law. I can't remember which Edward it was now off the top of my head. But there was I think it's the 1302 papal bull, Unum Sanctum. It was a papal bull by Pope Boniface, And basically it was against Philip of Spain, and what he was doing was claiming the souls of everybody, saying, if you don't belong to the Catholic Church, regardless of where you are in the world, it was the first trust ever set up. If you don't, then you can't go to heaven. You know, everybody's religious, and you know, you can't go to heaven. You've got to go. There's only you can only be saved through the Catholic Church. And Edward, I think it was Edward I or Edward II. In retaliation for that, because what he was doing was upping the taxes on the kings, but in retaliation he removed the protection of the common law from the clergy in England. And you think to yourself, remove the protection of the common law? Oh, right. So even the Normans used the common law. That's why Magna Carta is as it is. The common law is what governs, is what rules. And people are subject to the law, and the law is to be upheld, not enforced. They're all different concepts that people no longer understand.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, oh, he's breaking the law. It's like with drugs. If somebody's banging heroin in them,
they're not breaking the law.
They're not breaking the law by banging heroin in them.
No.
Because what goes into your body is entirely up to you. If you want to screw your body up, then you screw your body up. So I say, no, well, I'm paying for it. It don't matter whether you pay. You're paying for it because we're stupid enough to pay the taxes that have been stolen from us.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, everybody, because we've lost this idea of individual responsibility. Because we're no longer individually responsible, we think the state's responsible for protecting us, then...
Yeah. We've given away his power.
We've given away, we've given it all away. So, the big secret, and it is a big secret, that is the consent bit. The last thing the government wants to know is that you do everything by consent. If you don't do it by consent, then you're a slave. If you think that somebody makes law for you, then the law is no longer there to protect you. The law is enslaving you. Because the person that has that authority over you will exercise that authority for their benefit. They always do. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. And it is absolute power. The fact that the hammer hasn't come down that hard yet, and though it has in Greece, Spain, it's going to go tits up in Italy. Yeah. They're rioting now in Spain. They're still going at it in Greece.
It's a domino effect all around the world.
And it's if you look at our system of common law, when it was settled in 1701 up until 1911, when the Parliament Act came in, and we've not had a lawful act of Parliament or legislation since. Since then, Nick Clegg said it in Parliament not long back, we've got to the reform of the House of Lords. It's been a 100-year reform. And it has been a 100-year reform. It's been since 1911. They've been trying to reform the House of Lords because they're two equal houses. And that separation of powers from House of Commons, House of Lords, Head of State, the police, the constabulary and the judiciary, all these separations of powers that have all come together now, were all for our benefit. Our ancestors, our forefathers, knew exactly what was going to happen. They knew exactly how to protect us. They'd seen it all before. So everything was put in place for us to be a free people. We've always called it a free country. Well, if somebody makes law for you, it ain't a free country. No. It can't be. If the law's not there to protect you, but to be enforced upon you, then it's not a free country. And that doesn't mean freedom to do what you want to harm others. That means freedom to do what you want, to live your life, to have well-being, to have wealth, whatever.
To set up your own business, to travel do what you around, want. You know.
Not to harm people. No. This is what freedom is. Freedom to do as you wish, to improve yourself, to do what you want, to go and sit in a cave if you want. Whatever floats your boat at the end of the day. Yeah. But we don't have that here. If you look at Parliament, for the first 2 years that Parliament were created, it made no legislation. And we're looking at 4,000 bits of legislation.
Wow.
None.
Mm.
I think in the third year it was 3. There's no need.
No.
There's no need. We've already got law.
Yeah.
Why did Edward say I'm removing the protection of the common law from the clergy? You've already got the protection of the common law. You was outside the law. That was it. That's where outlaw comes from. You're outside of the law.
Yeah.
And you can't make up what's happened. I mean, I think it was 1963. What was it? Harold Wilson removed the common law, and then he removed constitutional law from the schools curriculums.
When were this?
1963.
Bloody hell.
I think it was 63 for the common law, and I think it was about in the early 70s for the so you could still take them as subjects for constitutional law. That's why no lawyers or judges, very few now, under no constitutional law.
Yeah.
We've got a Supreme Court now that's totally legitimate. This is one of the things that it's divide and conquer. One of the things that people don't understand between the House of Commons and the House of Lords having the same power. They think, right, they're two equal, but they're equal in different respects. They have the House of Commons is where we elect criminals to represent us, and what they're representing is not our views, is not our opinions. They can't, because like I said, if you've got somebody getting in on 11% of the vote, how is he representing? What's he representing? Just the views of 11% of the people? What's he there for? The assumption's got to be something else. The only reason, we send people there to administrate on our behalf, and the reason they're there is to protect and to uphold the law. The reason they're there is to protect our inalienable rights, our birthright. Not give it away.
No.
I don't send somebody there to tell me how to live my life.
So obvious.
Of course it is. I don't send somebody up there to tell me how to live my life. I'm going to do that myself, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't need you.
Yeah.
It's me that gets up in the morning and goes to work. It's me that puts coal on the fire. It's me that, our lass does the cooking. You know, we decide what we're eating. We decide what we're drinking.
Yeah.
We decide what goes into us.
What wife we want to have, you know.
We
want
decide.
to do his shopping.
Why do I need, if I have a contract with my wife, why did I need, dopey idiot, when we got married, a licence from the stinking government?
Yeah.
Why did I bring a third party into our contract? Our contract, as far as we got married in church, before God, joined together, we're still married after 30 years. So what do I need the government for?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. And the more we give them, the more they'll take. And one of the big problems I have now, which is where I'm really getting annoyed, is that they're killing in my name. And I don't want that anymore. No thank you.
That's the thing that niggles at me.
It really niggles that people are being sponsored to commit terrible crimes in places like Syria and Libya.
Yeah.
Those people have done nothing to me.
No.
They never have.
You know, we're putting all this money into to policing countries that have been messed up for thousands of years in some cases, and then we've got problems in his own country that need sorting out. You know.
Oh yeah, we've got people now that can't get treatment in hospitals.
Yeah.
Yet we're sponsoring the slitting of babies' throats in Syria.
That sort of thing.
Because that's not been done by Assad's troops. The last thing Assad wants is for his men to go around killing people, because that is one way of getting the people's backs up and getting you out. People don't think. It's like when we were told that 300 incubators were babies died because of
in Iraq.
In Iraq, and that goes to war. You know, no, call them babies. I don't know. What hospital has 300 incubators? We know now for a fact that the girl was coached into what to say, and it was a complete lie. It's all come out in the open. So we know we're being manipulated, we know we're being guided, we know that the press is part of it, we know that the BBC's part of it, and we're being slid along all the time. And it don't matter which party we vote for in them three specifically, the country goes in the same direction, and it's divide and conquer. People go down tribal lines, We've been nurtured into going down that way.
Yeah.
People say, oh, we want strong government. We don't want strong government, we want weak government.
Yeah.
When you get strong government, the people, the biggest enemy of any government is the people.
Yeah.
If you look back through history, most of the atrocities committed have been on governments and their own people.
Mm.
Look at China, look at Russia.
Yeah.
Ceausescu in Romania, he ended up being shot against a wall.
Yeah, a lot of places in Europe.
A lot of places in Europe, and like I was saying before, you've got 71 active settlements settled it for us. No more rule by divine right, no more of this civil crap. We're not having that anymore. It's common law. It's in accordance with the laws and customs of the people of this country.
Yeah.
It don't count.
And
the House of Lords is there to make sure of that.
From that, you can see how good England got and how amazing it become.
We had no dictators coming, did we?
No. All that come from
We had no
Europe.
Hitlers,
No.
we had no Mussolinis, we had no Ceausescus, we had no Lenins and Stalins. We had none of this crap. Francos.
But
Tito's.
now, because of the idea has changed, like you say with these 4 words,
Yeah.
it's going other way now.
Yeah.
To what it were like before Act of
We now-
Settlement come in.
We have now, what we have is rule by divine right again. They don't call it divine right, but it is by divine right because it doesn't stem from the Vatican. At the end of the day, the Pope makes the king, the Pope makes the government. And there's one guy called, what did he call the bishops? The Apostolic Senate, which is what they know, all the cardinals that decide who's Pope. He called them the Apostolic Senate. And in other words, it's another Rome, it's another Holy Roman Empire. But that's another thing to go into. There's a lot of research been done on that by people better than I, and they've really have gone into it deeply. That's where I got Unum Sanctum from, the papal bull, and there's been others. It's where the Sesque Vitrus come from. During the fire of London, while London's burning, Parliament's pushing through a trust that's actually claiming all the property of the people.
Yeah.
And they write it in
Very
French,
convenient.
so nobody can understand it.
Alright.
It was actually written in French, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's the only one on the statute
They'll
books
do
that's in
anything.
French. They'll do absolutely anything to take everything they've got.
Whenever there's a catastrophe like 9/11, all sorts of legislation gets forced through.
Oh, yeah. And what people don't realise is like 7/7's a specific. After 7/7 we had the America's, it was a Patriot Act. It was the
Terrorism Act on it.
Yeah, we had the Terrorism Act, and we had another one, an Enabling Act, which you could. Adolf Hitler would have been proud of it. Oh God, I've forgotten what it's called now. But that came in after. But these acts take a long time to write.
Yeah.
You're not done overnight, not done in a fortnight. So it was already in the process before 7/7. Same as the Patriot Act was already in the process of being written before 9/11.
Yeah. For sure.
For sure it was being written before that. And it gets pretty obvious really that when something happens that people are going to benefit from it, and you have to look at who benefits. And it's never us.
No.
Nothing's ever done for our benefit. So I've looked at other things as well, like I keep saying this to people, and people go, no, what's going to happen? Income tax. Income tax is slavery. It's pure
to do it by force, yeah.
Well, it is force, isn't it?
Yeah, they're doing
Because
it
if
by
you
force.
you believe that you have to pay it, so you're led to believe that you have to pay income tax. They have to bring PAYE in. So basically, whoever employs you steals from you and then gives it to the government. Because to take, everybody goes, oh no, what's going to happen? Everything's going to fall apart. Oh, no, it won't. The only thing that will fall apart is the private thieving elites that are stealing from us.
Yeah.
And I don't give a monkeys if the wrong child's go bankrupt. I really don't care if they're out there sweeping the streets.
No.
They should be in prison.
Yeah.
These people, it's like when you look at the bankers in, 9 million Barclays man's walked away with?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
All this about, all the fraud, the LIBOR, all that kind of thing that's going through at the moment. I was committed, fraudulent, the interest rate fixing through the Bank of England and all this. Well, Barclays man, I think it's 9 million he's walked away with. Yeah, right. I'd keep my mouth shut for 9 million and all that.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
Shut your gob money.
It is, yeah.
You're not going to prosecute him. The guy should be in prison. So, you know, it's... Yeah, here's your 9 million. Get yourself off. Keep your gob shut. Yeah, of course I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
They did it with Crozier with the post office. They wanted to sell the post offices off. They wanted to get rid of the Royal Mail. Everybody loves the Royal Mail. So what are they going to do? They've got to destroy it from within. Get people to say, oh no, it's costing us money. Oh, we've got to sell it off. So what did Crozier do? He ended up with £1 million paid off. He's crying, where's incompetent, he's done this, he's done that. Yeah, he's done exactly what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Get it ready for sale. You can't make it up.
No.
It gets more and more obvious as we go on. People are getting all these bonuses. Why? Keep your gob shut.
Mm. That's it.
No other reason. Keep your gob shut. You've got your millions. You're not going to prison. Make sure of that. You're going to live your life. You're going to be all right, right?
Mm.
And that's all it basically is. Nobody has a claim on your labour. That's the thing with income tax. How can anybody have a claim on your labour unless you are a slave? You can't.
Mm.
It's like when the council say, well, it's a tax. It's a tax on you. It's not. It can't be a tax on you, the council, because they're providing a service. They're a service provider. We employ these people to provide us a service.
Yeah.
Now, if we don't want that service, or we only want parts of it, why do we have to pay for everything else?
Yeah, that's true. That's the problem I've got.
You know, why do I have to pay? Well, there's a lot of things for all this climate crap that's going on with them.
Yeah.
All this diversity crap that's going on with them. There's so much, and one of the things, a lot of money for councils comes from central government. I think 30% comes from us, and that 30% basically pays the wages and the pensions. So there's that much taxation now. I mean, it's I think it's over half now. Over half of what you've got goes in what a form of taxation.
It is, yeah, yeah. Even when you're buying a tin of beans, you know, you're paying a certain amount of tax.
Yeah, there's tax on everything.
Yeah.
And quite often they're double dipping, aren't they? It's like when you go to fuel pumps, you've got VAT on it and you've got duty on it.
Mm.
So there's two taxes on it. Same with beer. You know, there's all the old English people that's buying beer. You've got duty on it and VAT on it. You know, excise duty and what have you. And it's a bit much, really.
Mm.
So where's all the money going? And don't look at the budget, because the budget is that, a budget. It's not an account.
Mm.
They're not certified accounts. So let's have some certified accounts and see exactly where income tax goes. And I'll tell you where it goes. And please, anybody watching this, please prove me different. Income tax goes on paying the national debt. It goes into the back pockets of bankers. That's where it goes. On a debt that's...
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason for income tax.
Mm.
And the actual system is a good system. The fiat currency system is a good system. That's my opinion. I think it's a good system. The problem with it is it's like if you get 4 people sat around playing Monopoly and one person's the banker and only he knows the rules, you're all buggered, aren't you? You're never ever going to beat him. And the thing is because we don't understand the game, and we're playing a game, we don't understand when we can step back from it and say, nah, thank you, stick it up your backside. Mm. Because we don't understand the rules of that game, we can never win. And that's done purposely. It's obviously by design.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's...
made to be confusing for
It's
you.
made to be confusing, yeah. People are confused. People stick their head back in the sand. Yeah. I know it's... if you stick the head in the sand, you've got something stuck up in the air ready for shafting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that.
No, it's... It's not rocket science. The system isn't rocket science.
No.
Not really. If you start looking at UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, and start coming in all that, and trust law and everything else, you can understand why people need lawyers and need solicitors. But to defend yourself in a court, a proper court de jure, court of law, then you don't need anybody but yourself. Or anybody a witness to the fact.
Mm.
You don't need a lawyer because you're not an imbecile. You shouldn't have somebody sat up there with a wig on, going like looking down on you, pretending to be God, intimidating you, so you think you've got to have this parasite side of you to speak for you.
Yeah, and then you've got the 12 asses of the zodiac also deciding.
Yeah, instead of a jury 25.
Yeah.
I think that was the original. But if you're going to be tried, if there's a dispute and you have jurors, people to sit in judgment, basically, over who is right and who is wrong, because you've got to have that. It's better to have the 12 or the 13 than it is to have, and there again you're looking at ecclesiastical, it's better to have that than one man who's paid by the state.
Mm.
Why you cannot be judged by the state, which is the European, the Roman system, you're judged by the state. And when you go down that route, then you've got serious problems.
Yeah.
You really have got. You haven't got justice. We know we've got no justice in this country at the moment. When people are put in prison because they're questioning.
Yeah.
They're asking questions with no proper trial by a jury of their peers. So when that happens, you know you're living in a police state. You know you're living. You know that the people that are governing, or your administrators or your trustees, have gone off. They've gone off the wall. They have. They're now acting as your rulers. They now believe that they have the divine right to rule. Must be up there at their head. You know, you know, I've been elected. I can do this. No, you can't. And they're allowing people to be imprisoned. They're allowing without a fair trial. And the last thing they want. Can you imagine? Say for TV license. Can you? I think it says on the summons for that it can only be done by a magistrate. So there's certain things that it can't go to trial.
All right. Yeah, because they usually just take your file to court. You don't have to go to court yourself.
No, you don't have to go to court yourself. This unlawful administrative court.
Yeah.
The Star Chamber, basically, it's a corporate court. It's a tribunal. It's a tribunal where they're exchanging financial instruments. That's all it is. And the magistrates, the court is bought and paid for, literally. They're doing business. And all they're doing is fetching you in to pay.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. So, and understanding that either gets you thrown out or thrown in prison. As they don't like being challenged on it, obviously. And to be fair to a lot of magistrates, they don't have a clue. They don't know what they're doing. Most of them are probably decent enough people. They just don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're up to. Oh, it's like with a TV licence. If you put your argument forward in front of a jury of 12, say, I can get up TV licence, council tax, income tax. You make your case for all of those three in front of a jury. I can guarantee you all 12 will find for you.
Yeah.
With what we know, with what we understand now, how we understand the system works, how we understand what's happening, how we understand the system of money, how it's created, how money is debt, all this lot, when you bring it all together and you present it as a case, they're desperate not to get in front of a jury. Yeah. They're desperate not to have a jury system. They're desperate for the truth to stay hidden.
Yeah.
You really are. It is desperation.
Yeah.
It's desperation when they have to break their own statutory legislation, their own rules that they've made for themselves. Because that's in the, I think it's 1988 Canada Act. It's written here, states, I've not read it myself, so this is from Dean Clifford, I've not read this myself. Yeah. But apparently it says in there that acts of Parliament, statutory legislation, are only applicable to agents of the government,
Alright.
which they are.
Yeah. The rules
They're not
of their own.
the rules of their own making, the rules that belong to them. So that statutes, acts, legislation belong to them.
Mm.
They only affect us when we put on the corporate persona and contract.
Yeah.
And that is one of the biggies, isn't it? It's like the legal fiction and all this kind of thing that they understand. It's when we put that jacket on as Robin
Mr. Daniel Bostock is the employee of government.
Of the government,
Daniel, who belongs to a family called Bostock, is just a man.
Just a man.
Yeah.
Before God.
Yeah.
So people get rid of God. Think, I'm telling you now, if you don't believe in God, I don't care.
It don't matter, does
Bring
it?
him back.
There are laws of the universe that are in place.
Yeah, bring him back.
Yeah.
You know, cite him, because at the end of the day, whether you believe in him or not, if there's nothing between you and him, then you've got everything back.
Mm.
And that is how they see it. I'm a child of God, not a child of the state.
Yeah.
And if you look at it like that, you suddenly, the concept changes, isn't it? The path changes then.
Yeah. You're like number 2 in pecking order then.
You're number 2, it was Robert
three.
Bernard, you're number 2 in pecking order, not.
Yeah.
And it's a biggie, that is a real biggie. There's a lot of biggies, you've got to bring them all together.
Yeah.
And I've got my prompters here. I'm not going to read this lot out. Yeah, it's something I've written here. It's like slave to the law, those who make it. And yeah, it's mostly what I've said now, so I'll just have a look at it. We get told a lot of things, don't we? There's a couple of sayings, I can't remember who said this, so it's not mine. But it's like, with the cameras everywhere and how much legislation there is. Like 4,000, it's heading for 4,000 bits of legislation. Legislation's being chucked out of Parliament now and there's nobody there. Well, figure that one out. So how can they be making legislation when there's nobody there to, and how can you discuss 4,000 pieces of legislation? You can't. So none of it's all absolute bull.
Yeah.
And none of it, nothing that comes out of Europe's applicable to you. Anyway.
No, not at all.
It's a foreign jurisdiction.
Mm.
If it's not in common law, it's not applicable unless you want it to be. That is your choice. That is your consent. But it's like it's all power. Power, power, power. And there's a bloke, I can't remember who it was now, he says, the power that they've got is more power than a bad man should have and more power than a good man would ever want. Yeah. And that struck me.
Yeah.
That really struck me.
So
I think
true.
that puts it in a nutshell, that.
Yeah.
And it is. They can't be very good men, can they?
No.
If they want to have that power over us.
No.
Because they're not protecting us. It's not their job to protect us. It's not the government's job to protect you. It's not the police's job to protect you. It's the police's job to uphold the law, or the constabulary, should I say, not the police. It's the job of the constabulary to uphold the law and to keep the peace, basically, to make sure that there's no breaches of the peace. It's if they're enforcing law, obviously then that's something entirely different. What they're doing is enforcing statutory legislation and acts of Parliament. So they're contracting. We know this anyway, of all the free men and all this.
Yeah.
We know this is fact. There are offers to contract. And if you say no contract, then there is no contract. But this is something from Lioness law. I don't know if you've... But a friend of hers told her, and it is a very good point, it's all right saying I don't consent, I don't consent. It can be ignored if you haven't established that already, prior to it, that consent's needed.
Mm.
So if you've got to establish that consent's needed, like I'm talking now, I'm establishing that consent's needed. Because if consent's not needed, then you are a slave. And slavery is a heinous crime and it's unlawful. So it's got to be by consent. It cannot be by anything else, can it?
No.
It can't be. It just
Anything
cannot
else
be
is
anything
immoral,
else.
isn't it?
Yeah. Anything else is immoral and unlawful.
Yeah.
And it's an infringement on God's laws. And as everything's ecclesiastical and it comes down from there anyway, it's, you know, people think, oh God, the Vatican, no, no, they don't. The law makes Parliament, it's our law, we decide that Parliament exists, it's a fiction. And that, it's like the maxim is, that's probably paraphrasing it, but that which is created cannot be greater than what created it. In other words, so, like if you believe that God created you, you can't be greater than God. And you can't be greater than what created you. And the law creates the king, the law creates Parliament, therefore they are subservient to the law.
Yeah.
And the law is a common law. And the limits, the scope and applicability of the authority that we give these people are in the Constitution. It's why we have one. It's there to limit, not to say what we can and can't do as such, but it limits what they can do.
Yeah.
Some people call it a con. I know, you know, they look at words a bit too deeply sometimes.
Yeah,
you know,
John Harris went a bit too far.
I think he has, bless him, and he's a good
nice
man,
bloke, you know.
But I think that's going a bit too far. Oh, conning Constitution means you're being conned.
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't think so.
It's con is from confidence trick at the end of the day, isn't it? It's a
Oh yeah.
But I think that's going a bit. I can understand where he's coming from with it because he's right in a lot of ways. But the Constitution basically is there as a contract. That's what it is. It's a contract. And if you don't have a contract with the people you employ, then they can do anything they like, can't they? It's like, you know, you don't employ somebody. If I employ somebody to do my garden and I come home from work and he sold my garden shed, I'm having cops around, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know? You can't do it, can you? And that's all they've done, isn't it?
Yeah, same thing, yeah.
So water belongs to us. The power, the energy supply belongs to us. These are basic needs that we need to have. All these things that they've sold off belong to us. We paid for them, we created them, they belong to us. They've got no right to sell them off. We still own them. The fact that we're not getting any benefit from owning them is immaterial, but to be quite honest, we still own them. It's on our land. This is ours. This is our home. It's the homeland. People have a right to a homeland, don't they? Where they can live in accordance with their own laws and their own customs. We have that right. But if that's another thing is if you say people don't exist anymore, then they don't have those rights, do they? So you deny the existence of an indigenous peoples. If you got it in the UN, if you deny the existence of an indigenous peoples, well, they don't really exist. Their laws are nothing, their customs are nothing, they've got no tradition, they've got no culture, they've got this. You've basically wiped them from history, which is what they do all the time with the English.
Yeah, they're doing it now.
English specifically and Welsh specifically, they do it a lot to the Welsh. And it's what they're doing now.
Yeah, this creation of EU sort of doing the same. So the English people don't exist, the European. That's sort of where it's going.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it. We'll have a minute, that's it in a nutshell. A question I asked is, if all national debts were cancelled, who would lose out? Who would actually lose out? If all national debts, when this G20 gets together, if they all got together and says, right, we'll cancel all debt all over the world, we'll cancel it all, who's going to lose? I'd love somebody to tell me.
I'm trying to think now.
Who's going to lose out? We'll cancel again, we'll refloat up, we'll all have his own currencies, we'll refloat it all, we'll get back into it. Who's going to lose out?
They did that anyway. In Aztecs, I think it were every 52 years, all debts were cancelled, wiped out, and they'd start again. And it were the only thing they could do to get it to work.
To get their system to work?
Yeah.
Well, that's what they do here, isn't it? It's 70 years, isn't it, bankruptcy? We're operating in, we're operating in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, aren't we? And then you need another war or something, or some disaster to get you back into it.
Nobody'd lose out, would they?
Oh yeah.
What if all
a few families would.
Oh yeah, the rich, the super ultra
rich who are creating
would
money.
lose a few percentage.
So if you wiped out all debt tomorrow, and then took control of the fiat currency, took control of fiat as a money supply, and did it properly, who would lose out? Nobody.
But
nobody of any concern. Nobody of any would be a massive benefit to everybody, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds stupidly simple, don't it? But it's, we're never going to get everybody to agree to this, or But at the end of the day,
people do agree if they knew.
We know, yeah, but it's like Greece at the moment. I mean, I'm half Greek, so I know what's going on there. It's like when people say to me, "Oh, they're retiring early." They retired early before they went into the European Union. They paid a lot of money into. They live in a lovely country, lovely weather. They don't want to be sat behind a desk or digging a trench at 60-year-old in that. No. Would you want to be?
No.
I'd want to be knocking it on the head and enjoying my life.
Yeah.
We call them for work for retiring early, and look at us. I'm knackered. I'm 56-year-old and boggered. I can't keep going for much longer. I'd love to be retiring now. And I've paid in all my life, but I can't retire. So who's benefiting from everything I've paid in? Not me.
Sure, we were promised this. During the Industrial Revolution, they were promised more leisure time for us children and grandchildren, better health care.
Well, more leisure time in medieval
early
times.
Retirement, things like this.
We had more leisure time before the conquest.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Much more leisure. I can't remember how many weeks, something like 20 weeks work.
Yeah. As time gone on, people's got more busier, if anything.
Too busy.
And you'd think it's a bit other way round.
Yeah.
If you sort of project from future, like 100 years ago, you'd think, oh, there's going to be a lot more leisure time for us.
Yeah.
Machines are going to do everything. But
we've got all these machines and everything else, and now we're working even harder.
Yeah.
But we're working harder to prop up a fraudulent system. Literally, it's only fraudulent because we don't know what's going on. If we understood it, and we understood the rules and how to work within it, then it wouldn't be so bad. It would be a benefit. Because the thing is, a lot of people say if you base currency on gold, one of the what you end up with is somebody only having all the gold again.
Yeah.
And you still have a rich elite. It's like what did somebody say? If you took everything off the bankers today, they'd just, if you confiscated it all, they'd just write a cheque and buy it all back tomorrow. Because they have that power. They've been given that power when they shouldn't have it. Totally legitimate. We actually use a private script that's it doesn't belong to us. We use money that's not ours. And it's a promissory note, we know that. It don't belong to us. It's like being in like in olden days when you used to work for a factory owner and he used to pay you in his own coin.
Yeah.
And you had to spend it in his shop. And now we're doing that. We've got a promissory note from Bank of England. It's still got its own, what are they called? Federal Reserve's got them as well. I forgot what they're called now. What are they called, Dan?
I'm not sure.
You know what I mean? As soon as what I'm trying to tell you comes back into me, you know what I mean? It'll come. Anyway, but it's like we know the Bank of England was set up private anyway. It was a private institution. And it went to, nationalised by Labour, but they had a big payoff. It still won't come to me, shareholders. The shareholders had a big payoff. But they still kept control. They still decide who's the governor, even though the governments don't try and have their pants down by telling the government that chooses who's going to run the Bank of England, who's on the board, who's making the decisions. Don't try and tell them.
Come on.
They get a choice. You know, these people are bent. Really, really are bent. I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I say we've got 15 minutes left on this recording time on cars. So.
How long am I yanking on for?
Oh, a good 50 minutes. That's brilliant, that is.
Just one point I'll make though, what people don't understand is with rights. The free men do, all them that's been going into free men and lawful rebellion understand this principle very well. But a lot of people don't, and that's your rights being unalienable or inalienable, meaning somebody can't have a claim on your rights. So the difference between rights and privileges. Privileges can be taken away, rights can't be. What a lot of people don't realise is if you don't claim your rights, if you just assume that you have them, then people can also assume that you don't.
Yeah.
Which is what the government does, and what these elites do is they assume you have no rights, that you're a child. Because a child has no rights. All these people saying, oh, a child's got rights. No, they don't. They don't have any rights.
Got like a legal guardian and things
That's
like that.
why they have parents.
Yeah.
You used to get the key to the door, didn't you, at 21, and then it went to 18.
Yeah.
This is you're an adult now, all these unalienable rights are yours. We now think you're responsible enough to have those rights, to be able to claim what rights belong to you, because they belong to you by right of birth, by right of your incarnation on this planet. They are yours. Every single individual man and woman on the planet. But as rights and responsibilities, a child don't have them. So all this about children's rights is complete bull. They haven't got any rights. The parents have the rights, and it is their responsibility, their duty, their obligation to preserve those for when the child is old enough to claim them for themselves. And that's the legacy that each generation should pass on to the next. And we don't do that anymore. All this part, I don't know how a child can have a right. You could say the right to life.
Yeah.
He's got the right to life. But what's the right to life if you're driving down the road, touch wood, it never happens, but you're driving down the road and you all get killed in a car crash? Where's your right to life gone?
Yeah.
It's not a right, it's, you know, you have a right not to have that life taken by someone else unlawfully.
Yeah.
That right obviously exists for everybody, even that's why you have a duty and obligation to protect your child. So if somebody breaks into it, you have a duty and obligation to protect your missus and your kids. Without a doubt, it's not the job of the police. Because the police, if it was the job of the police, if somebody broke into here and the police aren't already there to arrest them and to protect you, then they're liable. They'd be liable, wouldn't they? So it can't be their job to protect you. It's their job to uphold the law. It's your job to protect your family within your own home or out on the street. It's your job to protect yourself. And these rights are what you claim them to be.
That chair's squeaking a bit.
Yeah, but stop moving about. But rights, whatever you, like I said before, rights are what you claim. And unless you claim them, you don't know you've got them really, a lot of the time. Just
yeah, that's
thinking
right.
rights.
Yeah.
So whether you want to claim them in public, to me that's the best way, claim them in public. And all you're doing that is by doing the public notice. You can send that to anybody you like. I sacked the Queen ages ago. She don't work for me, as far as I'm concerned. She's in breach of her contract, so I don't see why I should employ her anymore.
Yeah, right.
So why? She's in breach of her oath. And that's a contract to me, so I'm not interested. Whatever she does. But there you go, mate.
Brilliant.
We'll do another one someday. We'll do things in a
Yeah.
bit more detail, I think.